This happened back in 2017, during my first year working as a 911 dispatcher in a small county just outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. I was 23 at the time, fresh out of training, and still adjusting to the overnight shifts, the ones nobody else wanted. It wasn't a super busy precinct, so most nights were quiet. A couple domestic calls, the occasional drunk driver, noise complaints from the trailer park out on Route 89. I had just gotten used to the rhythm of it. I remember this particular night because of how normal it was at first. It was a Tuesday, middle of winter, freezing rain tapping against the windows of dispatch. I brought a thermos of gas station coffee and was reading through an old training manual during downtime. Just me, 2 patrol units on duty, and a sleepy supervisor in the next room. It was about 3:16 a.m. when the call came in. I remember the timestamp exactly because I glanced at the wall clock as the console lit up and buzzed. The caller ID screen showed a number that immediately made my stomach twist. It was my number, my personal cell, the same phone that was sitting, face down, right next to my keyboard. At first, I assumed it had to be some kind of system glitch. We were always told weird things can happen with spoofed numbers or prank calls. But something about seeing my name pop up on the caller ID. I can't explain it. It felt wrong in a way that made my hands go cold. I answered like I was trained to. 911. What's your emergency? There was no response. Just a kind of faint, static buzz. Then, after a second or two, I heard breathing. Not heavy or panicked, just a steady inhale and exhale, as if someone was sitting still and holding the phone close to their mouth. Hello? I said again, trying to keep my voice calm. This is 911. Do you need assistance? The breathing stopped. There was a long silence. I almost thought they'd hung up when I heard this low whisper, barely above the static. Don't leave. I froze. The voice sounded familiar. Not in the way you recognize a friend or family member, but in the way you recognize your own voice on a recording. Flat, detached, like hearing yourself through a voicemail, but slower, more distorted. It sounded like me. Who is this? I asked. I checked my cell to make sure it hadn't somehow dialed out. Still there, screen off. No calls made. The line crackled again, then more whispering. Same voice. Same tone. He's inside. I slammed the line to hold and flagged my supervisor. I could barely get the words out. Told her something was wrong, that someone had called in from my number and said someone was in my house. She looked confused, like she wasn't sure if I was joking or sleep deprived. Then the call came again. Same number, same display, my full name and number. This time my supervisor answered on the second console. I watched her face as she listened, her eyes narrowing, then widening slightly. She didn't say much before hanging up, just nodded slowly and looked over at me. What the hell kind of prank is this? I told her it wasn't. I hadn't touched my phone. I hadn't moved. She picked up her desk phone and had one of the 2 night patrol cars rerouted to my house for a welfare check, just in case. I lived alone in a small rental, a little 1-bedroom place about 15 minutes away, in a quiet cul-de-sac surrounded by woods. I remember sitting there, heart pounding, as the minutes dragged by. At 3:42 a.m., the patrol car radioed in. Dispatch, we've got a light on inside the residence. No forced entry, but curtains drawn and front doors unlocked. I grabbed the radio. Did you say unlocked? Affirmative. Copy that. We're going in now. I don't think I took a single breath while waiting for their next update. It came 2 minutes later. Clear inside. Nobody home. No signs of disturbance. I started to feel that wave of relief until the officer added, "But you might want to see this for yourself. There's something weird on the kitchen table." My supervisor let me leave the desk to go meet them. When I pulled up, both officers were standing out front, clearly uneasy. One of them walked me through the house while the other stayed posted at the front door. Nothing looked out of place. My laptop was still on the couch, lights off except for the one in the kitchen. But when I stepped into the kitchen, I stopped cold. There, sitting perfectly centered on the table, was my phone. Not the one from work, my real personal phone. The one that was supposed to be with me at dispatch. I reached into my coat pocket, half expecting it to be there. But it wasn't. It was here, lit up, battery at 23%. Recent call log showed 2 outgoing calls, both to 911. One at 3:16 a.m., the other at 3:20 a.m. I picked it up. The screen showed a single open text draft. No contact entered. Just a blinking cursor and 5 words typed out. "I heard you come in." I don't remember much after that. I think one of the officers walked me outside. I was shaking, trying to piece together how any of it was possible. I never left my phone at home. Ever. And the idea that someone else had used it, had somehow typed that message. There were no signs of a break-in. Nothing stolen. The back door was locked from the inside. All the windows were secure. We checked the security footage from a neighbor's ring cam across the street. At 3:12 a.m., my porch light flicked on. A shape moved past the edge of the camera, too blurry to make out. Then the porch light went dark again. No one came in or out after that. I took a leave of absence not long after. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't focus at work. I kept thinking about the voice on the line, that slow, whispered, "He's inside." It wasn't just the words. It was the way it knew I'd be listening. The way it sounded like it had been waiting for me to pick up. I still don't have a good explanation. Some friends said maybe it was a stalker who cloned my phone. Maybe someone who got inside somehow and left it behind to mess with me. But that doesn't explain the voice. Or the fact that, to this day, that cell number, my old one, has never been reassigned. I tried calling it once from a new phone, months later, just to see what would happen. It didn't ring. It didn't go to voicemail. All I got was static. Then a faint sound in the background. Breathing. Then a whisper. "Still here." This happened 2 years ago, in the fall of 2022. My cousin Tyler had been working as a sheriff's deputy in a rural Colorado county for about 5 years. We were close growing up, more like brothers than cousins, and after I moved back to the area following a breakup, he offered to let me crash at his place for a bit. It was a quiet mountain town. One of those places where everyone waves at each other, and nothing much ever seems to happen. Tyler worked long shifts, and sometimes, if it wasn't too busy, he'd let me ride along. He probably wasn't supposed to, but out here, the rules were more relaxed. This particular night was cold, early October, right after the first snow had dusted the pine trees. We were parked off a Forest Service road drinking gas station coffee when a call came in around 1:30 a.m., a welfare check. Some guy named Bill Cooper, elderly, hadn't answered his daughter's calls in 2 days. She lived out of state and had called it in. Bill's house was about 20 minutes up a winding road near the base of Mount Haskell. Tyler muttered something about old Bill being a recluse and put the cruiser in gear. The drive up was quiet. When we pulled onto Bill's gravel driveway, I remember thinking how dark it felt. No lights from the house, no sound, not even crickets. Just this cold silence pressing in from the woods. Tyler knocked on the door, called out a few times. No answer. The porch light was out, but through the front window, we could see that a lamp inside had been left on. He tried the handle. Locked. That's when he circled around to the back door and saw that it had been left wide open. I stayed near the front while he called it in and stepped inside. I didn't want to follow him. It didn't feel right. I could see my breath fogging in the air, and despite the fact that it wasn't that cold, I was suddenly freezing. After a minute, I heard Tyler call out, "Sir, are you home?" followed by a pause. Then, I found him. He waved me in, so I stepped through the doorway, and immediately the smell hit me. That sour, metallic odor you always hear described in stories, but never really understand until you smell it in real life. Tyler led me into the living room. Bill Cooper was sitting upright in an armchair facing the TV, which was turned off. Eyes closed. Pale. Dead. No signs of trauma. No blood. Just a stillness that was almost peaceful, if not for how deeply wrong everything felt. Tyler was already calling for the coroner and logging it as a probable natural cause when we both heard a sound from the back of the house. A soft creak, like a door moving slowly on its hinges. He told me to stay put and headed down the hallway, hand resting on his holster. I stayed by the front door, heart thumping in my chest, every nerve screaming at me to leave. A minute passed, then another. Then I heard Tyler's voice call out, sharp. "Hey, stop." I ran toward the hall and saw him push open a bedroom door. I heard him say, "Sir, show me your hands," followed by a loud crashing noise and then complete silence. I stepped into the hallway, heart racing, and saw that the bedroom was empty. Totally empty. Not a stick of furniture. Just bare floorboards, faded wallpaper, and a single, ancient-looking mirror hanging on the wall. Tyler stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. He looked at me, confused. "I saw someone," he said. "He ducked into this room. I swear to God, I saw him. We did a sweep of the house. Nobody there. No footprints outside except our own. We chalked it up to nerves, maybe the stress of the situation, the shadows playing tricks. We left once the coroner arrived, dropped off the initial report, and headed back toward town. Now here's where it gets strange. The next morning, Tyler had to log the body cam and dash cam footage into the system. Since I was still staying at his place, I watched him pull up the video on his laptop. Just routine. He wanted to verify the timestamps and file the report. At first, it all matched up. The drive up, the arrival at the house, the knock on the door. But when it showed him circling to the back door, something was off. He wasn't alone. There was someone standing in the trees behind him, just at the edge of the dash cam's frame. Barely visible in the shadows. A tall figure, unmoving, watching. Neither of us had seen anyone at the time. Tyler rewound it, played it again. Still there. A dark figure just barely outlined by the reflection of snow. No facial features, no movement, and it was standing way too close to the house, just behind where I'd been waiting. We pulled up the body cam next. That's when things really got messed up. The audio played normally at first, his voice, footsteps, even the dispatch radio. But when it cut to the moment where he entered the house, the video glitched. Just for a second. The screen shimmered, froze, then continued. But now, Bill Cooper wasn't in the chair. The living room was completely empty. Even the lamp we saw lit from the outside was now off. Tyler and I looked at each other, completely silent. We let the footage play on. It showed him walking into the hallway, same as before. Then he opens the bedroom door, and this time, there's someone in the room. A man, standing directly in front of the mirror. Pale, thin, wearing old clothes, maybe 1950s, with his back to the camera. Just standing there, staring at his reflection. Tyler's voice came through again. "Sir, show me your hands." But the man didn't move. He didn't even flinch. Instead, in the footage, Tyler steps forward into the room, and the man in the mirror smiles. Only the reflection smiles. The real figure doesn't move at all. The video ends there. Cut. No explanation. The rest of the body cam footage was corrupted. We both sat there for a long time, not saying anything. Finally, Tyler shut the laptop and muttered, "That didn't happen. I didn't see that man. I didn't say that." He submitted the edited report without mentioning the footage. Didn't even log it as evidence. I don't blame him. Who would believe it? A few weeks later, Bill Cooper's cause of death came back as undetermined. Heart failure, maybe. Nothing suspicious. The house was sold, cleaned out, and flipped. But I still think about that mirror. And the man inside it, not the one Tyler saw, but the one I didn't. The one watching me from the trees while I stood on that porch. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had turned around. Or if, when we left that night, we had watched the footage before going to sleep. Because I've since checked the timestamp on that dash cam video, the moment when that figure first appeared in the trees. It wasn't when we arrived. It was at 12:03 a.m., half an hour before the call came in. My older brother, Sean, was a sheriff's deputy in northern Wyoming. He'd been on the force for over a decade, the kind of guy who could handle himself in any situation. Calm, steady, dependable, you know the type. I'm his younger brother by 5 years, and while I never followed him into law enforcement, we stayed close. He always made time for me, even during his longest shifts. Sean disappeared on November 12, 2021. No missing persons report, no national coverage, no Amber Alert-style mobilization. Just gone. Like a light switch flipped off in the dark. His squad car was found abandoned, still idling on the side of a remote county road. No signs of a struggle. No footprints. No damage to the vehicle. Just his cruiser sitting there, lights still flashing, and his radio mic left dangling from the console. It's been nearly 3 years, and the only real clue we ever had was his last 911 transmission. I've heard it. Probably hundreds of times. The department doesn't let people listen to it anymore. Pending investigation, they say, but Sean and I were close, and I still had friends in the comms center back when it all happened. One of them sent me a raw copy of the file before everything got locked down. I'll never forget that recording. Not just because it's the last time I heard my brother's voice, but because of the way he sounded. He was terrified. Let me back up. That night, Sean was working a solo patrol out near Route 14, a stretch of highway that cuts through a lot of forested nothing. Miles of trees, cliffs, and switchbacks. There had been a report of a car parked near one of the old fire roads, about 5 miles off the main highway. No plate details, just a vague tip from someone driving through the area saying it didn't look right. Sean responded to check it out. His last radio call was timestamped at 2:17 a.m. It starts normal. You can hear him step out of the cruiser. There's wind, the crunch of gravel under his boots. Then he says, "County, I'm out with an abandoned vehicle, no occupants. Looks like an old Subaru, dark blue. Doors closed, lights off. License plate is up." He pauses. That pause stretches longer than it should. You can hear him breathing, like he's staring at something and trying to process it. Then he says, quieter, "Never mind. Something's off. Can you copy my location and stay on the line?" Dispatch responds, but before they can finish, you hear Sean speak again, and his voice sounds wrong. It's shaky. Not panicked, exactly, but uneven, like he's trying hard not to show fear. "I think someone's in the woods. I just saw movement, about 10 yards in, left of the car. Can't see clearly, but they're standing still. Real still. Like they're watching me." There's a pause, then a faint whisper, not Sean's voice. Just a noise, hard to make out. Almost like someone mumbling under their breath, but distorted. Could have been the radio glitching. Sean says, "Hello? This is law enforcement. Identify yourself." Then comes the part that still makes my blood run cold. You hear footsteps. Rapid ones. But not Sean's. They're heavier, faster, moving toward him through the leaves and brush, and then suddenly, nothing. No impact. No yelling. Just complete silence. Then Sean comes back on the radio, whispering, "I don't know where they went." I turned, and they weren't there anymore. No sound, no movement. They just disappeared. Another whisper cuts through again, not his. "Closer now. Sean." Just that. One word, right up against the mic, clear as day. Like someone leaning into the transmitter and whispering his name. That's when he loses it. "County, I need backup out here. Now." I don't know what I'm looking at. He starts breathing harder, walking fast. You can hear his boots crunching leaves. Then he stops again, and there's this strange, low-frequency hum in the background. Almost like an engine running, but far off. Faint, rhythmic. It doesn't match anything I've ever heard from a vehicle, drone, or equipment. Just a pulsing tone that starts to rise in pitch. Sean's last words are, "It's not a person. It's not." And then the line cuts. Dead air. Just static. They found his cruiser 28 minutes later, still parked by the fire road. Driver's door open. Radio crackling. The car he had been checking on? Also gone. No tire tracks. No evidence it had ever been there at all. For the first week, the sheriff's office ran a full search. Dogs, drones, volunteers combing the forest. No signs of a struggle, no blood. Sean's service weapon was still in its holster. Body cam had shut off 10 minutes before the final call, battery fully drained, which doesn't make sense since it had been charged at the start of shift. The official report ruled it missing officer, presumed lost in terrain. Basically, they think he got turned around in the woods and succumbed to the elements. Only problem? It wasn't that cold, and Sean grew up in those mountains. He could hike blindfolded through them. He wouldn't have wandered. And that voice in the radio? It wasn't his. I've played that clip for audio engineers. Cleaned it up, isolated it, enhanced the waveform. They say it sounds like it's coming from inside the mic, not through radio interference, not external noise. Like someone was in the car. I've even tried matching the vocal signature to other known samples of Sean's voice. It's not a match. Here's the worst part. 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. 3:12 a.m. When I answered, there was no one there. Just static. Then, faintly, the same humming tone from Sean's recording, rising and falling, like some kind of low siren. Then a whisper, almost buried in the static. "Still out here." I haven't heard it since. I don't talk to many people about this anymore. Not even our family. Most of them have made peace with what happened. They think Sean fell, got hurt. Maybe an animal dragged him off before search teams could find him. The standard explanations. But I know what I heard on that recording. And I know what I felt when I answered that call. It wasn't closure. It was a warning. This happened during my third year working as a dispatcher in a mid-sized city in Oregon. We weren't a major metro, but it wasn't exactly Mayberry either. Lots of late-night calls, usually noise complaints, domestic situations, the occasional overdose or drunk driver. I'd gotten used to the patterns, the adrenaline swings, the strange things people say when they're panicked or scared. But this call, this one still keeps me up at night. Because it wasn't just disturbing, it was wrong. Like something about the timeline itself didn't make sense. And no matter how many times I've gone over it, the pieces never fit together. It was a Sunday night in October the 10th, I think. I was on the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, solo on the main board from 2 a.m. onward. That's when the weird stuff tends to come in, not always dangerous, but strange. People hearing things that aren't there. Seeing things they swear were real, only to disappear by the time officers arrive. You learn to balance compassion with skepticism. At 3:11 a.m., I got the call. It was quiet at first, just static and some rustling, like the phone was brushing against fabric. Then a faint female voice came through, whispering. Not panicked, just urgent. He's inside. I'm in the bedroom. I think he has a knife. I straightened up instantly. Voice traced. GPS showed an apartment complex on the south side, 213 East Lambert, Unit 3B. The caller ID was a prepaid number, but it registered locally. No background noise. No dogs barking. No footsteps. Just her breathing, shallow and close to the mic. I asked her name. Maddie Winslow. I asked if she knew the man, if he was still in the apartment. He's looking for me, she whispered. He doesn't know I'm in the closet. I flagged it as an active home invasion in progress. Units 2 to 6 and 2 to 9 were the closest and already en route. I kept her on the line, told her not to speak unless absolutely necessary. I could hear her trembling through the phone. It made my skin crawl how quiet she was, like she had gone completely still. 30 seconds before officers arrived, her voice came back. I don't think he's alive. I didn't understand what she meant. I asked again, and she repeated it. He's not breathing. Then, and I swear this to God, I heard her say, he's already dead, but he's still walking. The line went silent. Officers arrived 90 seconds later. They knocked, then breached, cleared the apartment top to bottom. It was empty. No sign of forced entry. No sign of a struggle. No blood, no weapons, no overturned furniture. No woman in the closet. Nothing. They did a full perimeter check. Nothing. The door had been locked from the inside with the chain still latched, something officers noted as strange, given no one answered their knocks. They called me on the side channel, frustrated. Thought it was a prank or someone high. I logged the incident, filed it, and figured maybe the woman had fled before units got there. I didn't hear her voice again until 5:26 a.m. 2 hours later. Same address. Same unit. Different call. A neighbor called in saying there was a woman screaming from apartment 3B. Officers returned. This time, they found her. Madeline Winslow, 28. No record, no priors. She was found in the bedroom closet, face down, blood pooled under her. She'd been stabbed 3 times, once in the lower back, twice in the ribs. Defensive wounds on her forearms. Pronounced dead on scene at 5:44 a.m. They pulled the call logs. Matched the prepaid number from the earlier 3:11 a.m. call. Same number, same voice. Same exact words in the dispatch transcript, even the line about him already being dead. Here's the part one haven't told many people. I went back and replayed the audio from her 3:11 a.m. call. I needed to hear it again. I sat in the quiet comms room, headphones on, listening frame by frame. Right after she says he's still walking, there's a noise, barely audible, like a dragging footstep, a breath that doesn't belong to her, something heavy and slow. And then, just before the line cuts out, a second voice whispers, "You called too early." I froze. The voice wasn't hers. Wasn't mine. Wasn't anyone on duty. I checked the background tracks. No overlays, no radio interference, no crosstalk from other dispatch lines. It came through her phone. After that night, I started digging against my supervisor's orders. I found Maddie's lease application. She'd only moved into that apartment 3 weeks before. The previous tenant? A man named Jordan Ellis. 31, died in that same closet. Overdosed. Found by his landlord 6 days after no one had seen him. The city ruled it accidental, case closed. I found a copy of the old scene photos in the system. He was lying face down, almost exactly like her. No connection between them. No mutual contacts. Different families, no social overlap, no shared work history. It made no sense. But sometimes I think back to that voice, not hers, his. You called too early. Like time had been around that place. Like she somehow called before it happened, trying to warn someone, even herself. The number she used? Disconnected. No account tied to it. One of those burners you can't trace. We tried calling it back once, just to see. It rang, and someone picked up. No words. No sound. Just a whisper of breathing. Then a quiet voice, barely audible, as if speaking from inside the closet. It's not over. This happened in March of 2021, during my 6th year as a sheriff's deputy in southeastern Idaho. I've kept it quiet for a long time, partly because it still messes with my head, and partly because no one who wasn't there believes it. Even people in the department just brush it off. Say it was a glitch, a screw-up in procedure, something explainable. But it wasn't. Not even close. My partner, Darren, and I were assigned to a prisoner transport run between Bannock County and a psychiatric holding facility about an hour south, near the Utah border. Nothing out of the ordinary. These transfers happened a couple times a month, usually non-violent holds. This one was flagged as high risk, but no specific details were given. Just a heads up that the subject had exhibited severe dissociative behaviors and needed constant supervision. The guy's name was Joel Harkins, 42 years old, picked up the night before for trespassing and resisting arrest. According to the report, he'd been found inside an abandoned church near Fort Hall, sitting on the altar, completely silent, surrounded by candles he didn't bring with him. When officers tried to remove him, he resisted, but never said a word, just stared at them, like he wasn't really there. At the station, he remained silent. No response to questions. No ID. No drugs or alcohol in his system. He didn't sleep, didn't ask for food or water. Just sat in the holding cell, staring at the wall. Eventually, they labeled him a psychiatric risk and prepped him for transfer. That's where we came in. We loaded him into the back of the transport vehicle, a reinforced SUV with a locked cage separating front and back, and steel mesh over the rear windows. Standard procedure. He was cuffed, double-locked, and seat-belted. No weapons on him, obviously. He didn't even react when we tightened the restraints. We left around 4:45 a.m. It was still dark out. Cold. Darren drove while I handled comms. The first 20 minutes were quiet. No noise from the back seat. No movement. I remember glancing at the rearview camera a few times and seeing him just sitting there, head bowed slightly like he was asleep. But something about it didn't feel right. He wasn't resting. He was waiting. About halfway through the drive, we hit a long stretch of two-lane highway that cuts through a wooded area with no lights, no houses, no signals. I remember checking the GPS and seeing that we still had about 28 minutes to go. That's when it happened. There was a weird crackle over the radio, not dispatch, just static. Darren tapped the dial, thinking we'd picked up interference. Then the dash cam monitor flickered, just for a second. Then it came back, and the back seat was empty. I thought maybe the camera glitched, but when I turned around to check through the grate, my stomach dropped. He wasn't there. No sound, no movement. The cuffs were still clipped to the seatbelt bracket. The belt itself was still buckled. The cage door hadn't been opened. The vehicle was locked, moving, sealed. But the prisoner was gone. Darren pulled over hard onto the shoulder, slammed the gear into park, and jumped out to check the back. I stayed inside and played back the dashcam footage, frame by frame. And that's when I saw it. At 5:21 and 7 seconds a.m., Joel Harkins is seated, still as stone. At 5 hours, 21 minutes and 8 seconds, there's a slight distortion on the footage, a flicker of movement, almost like a compression artifact. At 5 hours, 21 minutes and 9 seconds, the seat is empty. No jump cut, no edit, no door movement, no sound, just gone. Darren opened the back doors. They were still locked from the inside. Cuffs in place. Their sensor logs showed no breach. GPS had us traveling 57 miles per hour the entire time. No stops, no sudden deceleration. And we were in the middle of nowhere. No trees close enough to the road. No overpasses. No exits. We searched both sides of the road for nearly an hour. Radioed it in as a missing person, which felt ridiculous given the context. But what else could we say? That he disappeared into thin air? Back at the station, we were grilled. Admin pulled the dash cam. So did internal affairs. Everyone had a theory. We staged it. He jumped somehow. We were covering for a mistake. But the footage didn't lie. The van was sealed. The prisoner vanished. About 2 weeks later, we got a call from a town nearly 300 miles away. A small place called Grays Hill. The sheriff there said they had picked up a guy wandering through a cemetery at night, barefoot, unresponsive. No ID, no phone, just a torn hospital bracelet with the name Joel Harkins. When they tried to fingerprint him, the system glitched, literally froze up and rebooted. That's what they told us. When they took his photo, the file corrupted. They tried to email it to us, and the entire email server went down for an hour. Then, before they could transfer him to county, he disappeared again. Not escaped. Disappeared. Same way, mid-transport. 1 minute in the back seat, next minute, empty restraints. That's when the higher-ups stopped talking. No more questions. No more investigations. Everything got labeled classified internal error and buried in the system. Darren quit a few months later. Moved out of state. Wouldn't answer my calls for a while. I stayed, and every now and then, maybe once every 6 or 8 months, a report comes in. Different state, different city, always the same MO. A man found somewhere strange, an abandoned church, a graveyard, a condemned building. Silent, calm, always wearing a hospital bracelet, always vanishing before he can be processed. They don't send those reports to us anymore, but a friend in records still forwards them to me. The last one came from outside Minneapolis. It was just 3 weeks ago. The officer's report said the man had finally spoken. He looked the cop in the eyes and said, "Stop putting me back. It doesn't work." I've been a patrol officer for just over 8 years, most of it in a quiet rural district in western Pennsylvania. We don't deal with a lot of action out here. A few DUIs, some domestic disputes, the occasional farm equipment theft. It's the kind of job where you get to know everyone in town, and a single weird call can stick with you for the rest of your life. This is one of those calls. It happened in February 2022, during the night shift. My partner, Officer Marcy Allen, and I were the only car out past midnight, standard procedure during the slow season. It was snowing lightly, the roads were empty, and we were parked behind a closed gas station off Route 91 when the call came in. A woman screaming. The 911 dispatcher said the call was short, maybe 5 seconds of shrieking, followed by what sounded like a phone hitting the floor. Then nothing, just silence. The call originated from a landline registered to 112 Fairview Road. That address made both of us stop. 112 Fairview was an old, rotting farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Boarded up windows, collapsed porch, overgrown yard. Locals called it the Old Banning House. It had been empty since 1998, when the family that owned it just up and left. One day they were there, parents, 2 kids, the works, and the next, the house was vacant. There were always stories about it being haunted or cursed, but nothing you take seriously. A couple of teens tried to squat there years back, but the structure was considered too unstable for habitation. The utilities had been shut off for over a decade. And yet, the call had come from the landline. We drove out there, silent most of the way. Snow crunched under the tires as we pulled up to the edge of the driveway. The house was exactly how I remembered, sagging roof, ivy strangling the siding, windows dark. The front door was ajar, just slightly, creaking with the wind. We announced ourselves and stepped inside. The air was still, cold, but not freezing. The interior smelled like old rot and mildew. Furniture was still in place, covered in grime, as if someone had walked away mid-meal and never came back. There were cobwebs in every corner, and the silence was heavy. Oppressive. We cleared the ground floor room by room. Nothing. Just dust, decay, and empty silence. Then we headed upstairs. The bedrooms were worse. Wallpaper peeling, black mold creeping across the ceiling. One of the rooms still had a twin-sized bed with a child's blanket on it. Faded cartoon characters barely visible under the grime. Another had a dresser with a cracked mirror, but there were no signs of recent activity. No footprints. No disturbance. No working phone. We even checked the hallway closet and attic crawl space. Nothing. We were about to leave when Marcy noticed something. An old landline phone mounted to the kitchen wall. It looked dead. No dial tone. No hum. The cord had been cut. And yet, it matched the number the dispatcher had given us. We both just stared at it for a moment. We chalked it up as a system error, maybe an old line that somehow glitched and routed a different emergency call through the address. It happens, though not often. We called it in as cleared and left. Less than an hour later, at 2:46 a.m., we got another call. Same dispatcher, same address. Another 911 hang-up. This time, no screaming, just a low crackling sound and a whisper before the line went dead. The dispatcher said she couldn't make out what the voice was saying, but it sounded like a name. Officer Allen. We drove back. This time we were more cautious. Checked every door, every window. Still locked. Still no signs of entry. But the front door, which we'd closed on our way out, was open again. Just slightly. Same creak. We swept the house again. Upstairs and down. Again, nothing. No people. No movement. Just the smell of wet rot and something faintly metallic in the air, like old blood. Marcy stood in the kitchen staring at that dead phone on the wall. I asked her what she was thinking. I swear, she said, it rang. When we were upstairs last time. Just once. I thought I imagined it. We left the house again around 3:10. Radioed it in. Still nothing suspicious found, but we requested someone check the old phone records in case it was a spoof or test ping from an old system. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, dispatch reviewed the call log. The call at 1:37 a.m., the one with the screaming? It hadn't just come from 112 Fairview. It had come from inside the house. Specifically, the upstairs hallway extension. They pulled the audio again. This time, the sound tech ran a cleanup. What we thought was screaming. It was screaming, but not one person. It was a chorus. Multiple voices. Layered, distorted, all shrieking over each other. And buried deep in the middle, just audible if you slowed the file way down, was a male voice speaking clearly. Don't let them leave. Here's the part one haven't told anyone but Marcy. When we got home that morning, we both had voicemails from an unknown number. 5 seconds of static. Then a woman's voice whispering. I can still see you. We had our numbers changed. Didn't matter. The call stopped after a week, but neither of us ever went back to Fairview Road. The kicker? 3 weeks later, a house fire broke out in the neighboring property. While clearing the area, fire crews reported hearing a phone ringing inside the old Banning house. Multiple witnesses heard it. They said it rang exactly once. No one's gone in since.